Good morning, students. Today in this class we will be discussing different calcitropic hormones, and in this series at first we will discuss parathyroid hormone and parathyroid hormone related protein. So let us start with, in this entire class we will learn about the source, chemical nature, mechanism of action and physiological roles of parathyroid hormone as well as parathyroid hormone related protein. We will learn about the specific action of parathyroid hormone on different target organs, its exact mechanism. We will be learning about the applied aspects regarding parathyroid hormone, their clinical scenarios and a little bit of management. So let us start with today's class. First of all, let us enlist the hormones that are involved in maintenance of calcium homeostasis. Whenever there is fall or increase in the level of blood calcium, specifically ionized calcium, different calcitropic hormones get released into our system, which play a role differently to restore the blood calcium level. This is very crucial, this is very essential, because you all know the calcium plays a number of metabolic as well as neuronal activities in our system that are very crucial for our existence. Nerve muscle excitability, contraction of different muscles including skeletal, smooth and cardiac muscles all depend on optimum level of calcium. So it's a must that our body maintains blood calcium level within a strict physiological limit. So let us see what are the hormones involved into it. First and the foremost hormone in this series is parathyroid hormone. Then comes activated vitamin D3 or calcitriol or 1,25 dihydroxycholecalciferol, calcitonin and parathyroid related protein. These are the main calcitropic hormones whose main function is to regulate blood calcium level and maintains its normalcy. But there are certain other hormones which also take part in regulation of blood calcium level, though their major function is not the regulation of blood calcium level. These are growth hormone, different gonadal hormones like estrogen, testosterone, glucocorticoid, thyroxine, insulin and a recent molecule called alpha klotho, which are mostly derived from fibroblasts of the body and maintains optimum blood calcium level. So these are the hormonal substances secreted in our body which regulate blood calcium level within a normal physiological limit. Now let us discuss today about parathyroid hormone in detail. As I have mentioned, we will learn about different aspects of this hormone. So first is source of this hormone, from where it is secreted. As in the diagram we are seeing that there are 4 small parathyroid glands present in our body which are situated at the posterior aspects of the thyroid gland in front of the neck. Here we are seeing that at the superior pole of the thyroid gland there are 2 parathyroid glands called superior parathyroid glands and 2 are situated at the inferior pole. These are very tiny disc shaped structure and measures almost 3 into 6 into 2 millimeter in dimension. And on histology they show 2 different type of cells, among which chief cells are most abundant and another variety is oxyphil cells. But the major source of parathyroid hormone is the chief cell of parathyroid gland. So from these 4 parathyroid glands Specifically, their chief cells, parathyroid hormone, is secreted in our system within the blood. And its half-life is only 10 minutes. And as you know, it is an endocrinal substance. So after getting released, this hormone is carried out to its specific target organs where it exerts its specific role. What are the roles? We will be discuss in detail. And how or when this parathyroid hormones gets released? There are various stimulus for parathyroid hormone release, but the most important one is fall in blood calcium level. Most specifically, the ionized blood calcium level. Ionized calcium level normally is 9 to 11 milligram per dl. I have mentioned in the first class. So when this level gradually decreases, parathyroid hormone starts to be secreted from the gland to restore the calcium level back to normalcy. So now let us see how the secreted parathyroid hormone exert its action. One thing I just want to mention that parathyroid hormone is a protein hormone. It contains almost 84 amino acid. It's a polypeptide hormone and it cannot cross the cell membrane. It is lipid insoluble. So it must exert its action through its cell membrane receptor. Its receptor is present over the cell surface and there involves some second messenger system through which it actually exerts its action. When first synthesized, parathormone is synthesized as a larger molecule containing 115 amino acids called pre-pro-parathyroid hormone. From this pre-pro molecule, first a leader sequence is extruded out, remaining 90 amino acid polypeptide chain called pro-parathyroid hormone. It is done by the endoplasmic reticulum. And then again 6 additional amino acid residues are removed and pro-parathyroid hormone is called 84 amino acid containing parathyroid hormone. This is done by the Golgi apparatus. So from a larger molecule, gradually the slashing of different polypeptide portions are done, first at the level of endoplasmic reticulum, then at the level of Golgi apparatus, and ultimately the final form of parathyroid hormone is generated and it is released as the secretory product of the chief cells of the parathyroid glands. Now this parathyroid gland, when comes to its specific target organs, it exerts its specific action through different cell surface receptors. There are different type of receptors present over the target organs for the action of PTH. 3 main types of PTH receptors are till date studied. One of these parathyroid receptors also bind parathyroid hormone related protein. Because of the structural resemblance, PTH-RP or parathyroid hormone related protein can also bind to a specific type of receptor of parathyroid hormone. A second type of receptor, that is PTH2, does not bind parathyroid hormone related protein and it is found in brain, placenta, pancreas, etc. In addition to this, there is evidence of third type of receptor called CPTH, which reacts with carboxyl terminal rather than amino terminal of PTH. Now these receptors are different on the basis of their second messengers involved also. For first two type of receptors, there is G protein mediated action which generates a second messenger called cyclic AMP by stimulating adenylyl cyclase enzyme. So they are cyclic AMP mediated, first two type of receptors. The PTH-RP receptor also activates phospholipase C via G protein and its action is calcium mediated. So here the second messenger is calcium. So parathyroid hormone basically uses two different type of second messenger system, cyclic MP as well as calcium at different type of receptor level. So this is the mechanism of action. Now the physiological roles of PTH. Here in the left panel I have given you the enlistment of different actions of PTH, like it stimulates osteoclast to mobilize calcium from the bone, it increases renal tubular reabsorption of calcium, it inhibits proximal renal tubular reabsorption of phosphate, it indirectly increases intestinal calcium absorption by increasing vitamin D3 formation, it inhibits proximal tubular reabsorption of bicarbonate, sodium, potassium, H2O, amino acids. It promotes remodeling. Low PTH stimulate bone formation also, and indirectly increases intestinal calcium absorption by stimulating vitamin D synthesis, I have mentioned. But all these functions can be and should be discussed under three distinct headings on the basis of different target organs. So whenever there occurs release of PTH hormone stimulated by low ionized calcium level of the blood, the hormone exerts its action on three different target organs: bone, kidney and intestine. So let us have an idea how it exerts its action and what is the actual action on three different target tissue. So let us discuss one by one. First is role of parathyroid hormone on bone, effect of PTH on bone. This is the first and most important target organ for parathyroid hormone. Whenever there is fall of blood calcium and release of PTH, PTH comes to exert its action on bones, to be specific on different bone cells. You all know different type of bone cells: osteoblast, osteoclast, osteocytes, etc. And specific actions are achieved by which blood calcium level is restored. So in this sequence, the first thing that happens is osteocytic osteolysis. This is the rapid action after PTH release. What happens? There occurs immediate attempt of the skeletal system to replenish the lowered blood calcium level, and for that they utilize some ready currency, that is the available calcium present over the canalicular fluid. You know, in the last class I have described that in the Haversian system there remains osteocytes buried within the osteoid tissue, which is mineralized, and this confined occluded osteocytes gets connected with the surface osteoblast as well as blood vessels of the central canal through extensive canalicular system, and this canalicular system contains nutrition as well as newly laid calcium, which is not yet deposited as crystals. So here the ionized calcium remains as loose currency, which can be utilized by the body to replenish the lowered blood calcium level. So whenever there is release of PTH, the first action in an attempt to restore blood calcium level is osteocytic osteolysis. In this process, there occurs transfer of calcium ions from this canalicular fluid through the osteocyte into the blood vessels of the central canal. Here, the bony mass is actually not reduced. It is not mobilized, it is not resorbed. Rather, the canalicular fluid acts as a source of calcium. In this process, the phosphate is not mobilized, only calcium. So in this segment, that is the rapid action of PTH, we have learned the process is called osteocytic osteolysis, and in this process bony mass is not reduced, phosphate is not mobilized, right? Now let us see what happens when the exposure to PTH becomes further prolonged. If by osteocytic osteolysis the blood calcium level cannot be replenished, the further action or prolonged action of PTH is warranted. So, with more prolonged activity of PTH, there occurs osteoclastic bone resorption. That means resolution of bony substance, demineralization of bone by the action of activated osteoclasts, so that huge amount of calcium can be added up to the blood to replace the blood calcium level. The osteoclast are the bone resorbing cell, you all know. But one thing I must repeat, that osteoclast do not have any specific PTH receptor on its surface. Its activation though requires PTH, but PTH cannot stimulate it directly. So how does PTH actually stimulate osteoclast? On the release of PTH, the other bone cells like osteoblasts or osteoprogenitor cells, that are the precursors of all types of bone cells, get stimulated as they possess specific PTH receptors. Osteoclasts are mainly derived from the monocytes or the precursor cells of the bone marrow, monocyte precursors. So all these precursor cells are stimulated to proliferate and differentiate into osteoclast, and also the existing osteoclast gets activated by the action of PTH through different chemical messengers, chemical ligands, but not through direct PTH action. PTH first get attached to its specific receptor on osteoblasts or other cells, precursor cells which possesses PTH receptor, and these cells will liberate specific type of ligand called rank ligand, R-A-N-K, rank ligand. And rank ligand, you know, is a substance liberated by osteoblast on PTH action, and this rank ligand means receptor activator of nuclear factor kappa beta. Rank ligand is a chemical substance that can attach to its specific receptor present over the osteoclastic precursor cells, also on the osteoclast, that is called rank. What I am telling, it's a lock and key mechanism. Rank ligand released by the osteoblastic cells, and rank ligand when released get attached to rank, which is the specific receptor present over the pro-osteoclast as well as osteoclasts. Pro-osteoclast and osteoclasts, on attaching to rank ligand through its specific receptor rank, gets differentiated as well as activated into active osteoclast. Not only rank ligand, there are other substances also gets released by the osteoblast by the action of PTH. One of them is OPG or osteoprotegerine. Osteoprotegerine is an inhibitory substance that prevents interaction between rank and rank ligand, and thereby prevents fostering of osteoclast differentiation. So it prevents bone resorption in single word. Another substance is MCSF. MCSF, monocyte colony stimulating factor. it stimulates differentiation of monocyte precursor cells into the lineage, further differentiated lineage like osteoclasts. So it fosters proliferation and activation of osteoclast series. So by the action of rank ligand and MCSF, proliferation and differentiation as well as activation of osteoclast is fostered, whereas by the action of OPG or osteoprotegerine, the osteoclastic activation is inhibited. Am I clear? Okay. So in this diagram, we are seeing the interaction of rank OPG and rank ligand on the surface of osteoclast. What we are seeing, you see, by the action of PTH on the specific PTH receptor, osteoblast releases rank ligand which gets attached to rank. It also liberates OPG, that is osteoblast also releases OPG, osteoprotegerine, which inhibits rank and rank ligand interaction. So whenever there occurs rank and rank ligand interaction on the surface of osteoclast, it gets activated, and when this interaction occurs over the precursor cells, they get differentiated to form osteoclast, and thereby activation of osteoclast occurs. So now let us see what actually happens when this osteoclast gets activated. What is the effect of activation of osteoclast? This is our next task to learn. Here in this picture, you are seeing an activated osteoclast. Osteoclast, when gets activated, it develops certain ruffled border or villus-like projection occurs from the cell membrane, and this projections, villus-like structure, gets intricately adhered to the surface of the bone, compact bone, and it is sealed at the portion of cell membrane by some integrin proteins, and the zone where it is sealed up, it is called sealing zone, and an isolated area is created over the surface of the bone where the villus-like projection of the osteoclast releases different substances. What are those substances? They liberate different proteolytic enzymes by the lysosomes, by the release of lysosomes, proteolytic acid proteases, different lytic enzymes. Also, there occurs pouring out of H plus ion by H plus ATPase enzyme system, so that the localized bony area can be dissolved, forming a gutter-like depression called resorption pocket. The proteolytic enzymes liberated by the lysosomes dissolves the collagen proteins underneath, and the H plus ion liberated will dissolve the calcium phosphate crystals. So what happens in the localized portion, there occurs a gutter-like depression called resorption pocket, and the released calcium phosphate crystals are phagocytosed back by the osteoclast, and from there it is released into the blood circulation to replenish the blood calcium level. So this is how the osteoclastic bone resorption occurs under the influence of parathyroid hormones. Next action of parathyroid hormone is over the kidney. What does it do at the level of the kidney? Under the influence of parathyroid hormone, what happens? There occurs different mineral reabsorption process alteration at the level of the tubules of kidney. What are those? First is there occurs increase in calcium reabsorption. Different minerals, why I am telling? I am just going to mention. Increase in calcium reabsorption. PTH increases reabsorption of calcium from ascending limb of loop of Henle as well as distal tubules of the kidney and helps to prevent hypocalcemia. So first thing it has done, releasing calcium from the bony substance, and next thing at the level of the kidney, it is increasing reabsorption of the calcium from the ascending limb as well as distal tubule. But we see that in the scenario of hyperparathyroidism, where the parathyroid hormone release is excessive, there occurs prominent hypercalciuria. That means release of calcium from the urine. Why such happens? If there occurs increase in reabsorption, why hypercalciuria occurs with excessive PTH? The answer is that there occurs huge hypercalcemia in the phase of hyperparathyroidism by liberated bony calcium as well as increased reabsorption, increased absorption from the gut, so that huge calcium load of the blood leads to increased filtration of calcium in the glomerular filtrate, and from that glomerular filtrate huge amount of tubular calcium is also delivered to the tubules. In spite of increasing reabsorption, a major portion is excreted out into the urine. That means the reabsorptive process by the kidney is overwhelmed by the excessive blood calcium level. So urinary calcium level is increased. Hypercalciuria occurs. Also, under the influence of PTH, there occurs inhibition of phosphate reabsorption. That means two contradictory effects. Reabsorption of calcium is stimulated, but reabsorption of phosphate is inhibited in the proximal tubule. And the effect produces phosphaturia and hypophosphatemia. That means phosphate reabsorption is inhibited by PTH and there occurs phosphaturia and hypophosphatemia. There occurs inhibition of reabsorption of sodium and bicarbonate in the proximal tubule and stimulation of sodium Na plus H plus exchanger system by the PTH, and it causes acidification which may prevent the occurrence of metabolic alkalosis, which could result from the release of bicarbonate during the dissolution of hydroxyapatite crystals in the bone. There also occurs stimulation of reabsorption of magnesium by the renal tubules. And one of the major effect of parathyroid hormone on kidneys is also that it stimulates synthesis of 1,25-dihydroxycholecalciferol by the kidney, so that calcium absorption of the gut can be enhanced. Now the next target organ is gastrointestinal tract. I have just mentioned that under the influence of PTH there occurs excessive synthesis of 1,25-dihydrocholecalciferol by the kidney, as it occurs increased gene expression of 1-alpha hydroxylase enzyme, and so the formation of 1,25-dihydroxycholecalciferol or activated vitamin D3 is enhanced. And in the phase of excessive vitamin D, the absorption of calcium from the gut is also enhanced by the mediation of calbindin protein that I will be explaining in the next class. So we know that under the influence of parathyroid hormone, 3 different target organs are modulated for the maintenance of calcium homeostasis. They are bone, kidney and gastrointestinal tract. From the bone there occurs efflux of calcium ions by osteocytic osteolysis as well as osteoclastic bone resorption. From the kidney there occurs increased reabsorption of calcium and decreased reabsorption of phosphate, and also excessive formation of vitamin D excess vitamin D will lead to excessive absorption of calcium from the gut. So, by the combination of all these three effects, there occurs restoration of blood calcium level, which was initially low, and thereby stimulated PTH release. Now, these are the physiological roles of parathyroid hormone. Now, let us discuss a bit how the PTH release is regulated and what are the factors regulating PTH release. The first and foremost regulator of parathyroid hormone release is blood calcium. To be precise, ionized calcium. We all know that calcium in ionized form remains in the blood in the range of 9 to 11 milligram per dl. The PTH release is inversely proportional to the plasma ionized calcium level. PTH release gets maximally stimulated when the plasma calcium falls up to 3.5 milligram per dl. When the level falls up to 3.5 milligram percent, there occurs maximum rise of PTH release. Before to that, after that, if calcium level further falls, there occurs no further increase of PTH. This is the maximum release. Thereafter, it attains a plateau. When the calcium level starts to increase, the PTH level secreted from PTH gland gradually falls down, as it is inversely proportional. And when this level, that is blood calcium level, reaches 5.5 milligram percent, there occurs lowest release of PTH from its source. Thereafter, even if the calcium level is increased, no further decrease in PTH level occurs. So, it is almost a sigmoid shaped curve. The lowermost level is 5.5 and uppermost level is 3.5, that is blood calcium level, in between which there occurs a linear inverse relationship between blood calcium and PTH level. Before and after to that level, there occurs a plateau. So, this is the relationship of blood calcium and PTH level of blood. Now, how this calcium, ionized calcium, exerts its action to cause parathyroid release from its source? Parathyroid gland, specific cells of parathyroid gland, that is chip cells, possesses a specific receptor, calcium sensing receptor, which can attach to ionized calcium. Whenever there occurs increase in blood calcium level, this calcium getting attached to CASR, that is calcium sensing receptor, suppresses parathyroid release. But whenever the calcium level falls, there occurs disinhibition of the parathyroid cells and release of PTH occurs in excess. And when by modulating different target organs, blood calcium level is again restored and high blood calcium level sensed by the CASR, further parathyroid released is suppressed. So, this is the major regulator of parathyroid hormone release of our body, that is ionized calcium of blood. But not only the ionized calcium itself, there occurs certain others regulator of calcium release, that is parathyroid hormone release. These are plasma phosphate. The relationship of parathyroid hormone and plasma phosphate is directly proportional. That means phosphate ions, unlike calcium, stimulate parathyroid release. How it happens? Phosphate ions as such suppresses formation of vitamin D3, and as we know that vitamin D3 is another inhibitor of PTH release. So by suppressing vitamin D3 formation, phosphate ions ultimately stimulates release of parathyroid hormones. Magnesium is another regulator of parathyroid release. What is the role of magnesium? In the face of huge hypomagnesemia, there occurs suppression of parathyroid release. That means magnesium has got to some extent stimulatory role. Next is vitamin D3 itself. What does it do? Vitamin D has got an inhibitory role on the PTH gland for the release of PTH hormones. It directly decreases pre-pro-PTH mRNA and thereby suppresses PTH release. So if I summarize the regulator of PTH release, what I get? First is ionized calcium. The relation is inverse. Fall in ionized calcium, there occurs increased release of parathyroid hormone. Next is phosphate. Phosphate ion stimulates PTH release by suppressing vitamin D3 formation. Vitamin D3 itself is inhibitory for the PTH release as it suppresses pre-pro-PTH mRNA expression. And magnesium. Magnesium maintains the PTH secretory response. So in hypomagnesemia there occurs hypoparathyroidism or impaired parathyroid release phenomenon. So these are the regulators of PTH release. Now something about the applied aspects of PTH. As I have mentioned that PTH is very crucial in maintenance of blood calcium level. So in the phase of its excessive secretion or hyposecretion, diverse clinical scenario arise which are characterized by hyper or hypocalcemia, giving rise to different clinical symptoms and signs. So whenever there is excessive secretion, the scenario is called hyperparathyroidism, and whenever there is less than optimum release of parathyroid hormone, it is called hypoparathyroidism. Hyperparathyroidism can again be of two clinical types. One is called primary hyperparathyroidism, another is secondary hyperparathyroidism. In primary hyperparathyroidism, there occurs actual increase of parathyroid hormone secretion from the gland itself, either by neoplastic growth, that is solitary nodule adenoma of the gland, or any malignant changes of the parathyroid gland, neoplasia of the parathyroid gland. So this is primary hyperparathyroidism. It is essentially characterized by increased blood calcium level and features of hypercalcemia, ectopic bone formation, calcium stone formation in different soft tissue organs are the symptoms, and there occurs excessive resorption of the bone, weakness of the bone, etc. In secondary hyperparathyroidism, there occurs some reactionary or compensatory increase in parathyroid hormone synthesis. One of the golden example is renal osteodystrophy, which is an example of secondary hyperparathyroidism. Let us concentrate in this flowchart given in the next panel, renal osteodystrophy. What happens in chronic kidney disorder, that is chronic renal failure, there occurs decreased formation of vitamin D3, that is reduced activity of 1-alpha hydroxylase enzyme. So there occurs decreased formation of vitamin D. As a result, there occurs impaired calcium absorption from the gut. As we know that vitamin D helps for calcium absorption in the gut. So in its absence, there will be impaired calcium absorption, and there will be lowering of serum calcium or blood calcium level. And we know that it is the most potent stimulus for parathyroid hormone secretion. So in the phase of decreased blood calcium, ionized calcium, PTH release is stimulated. And in the phase of excess PTH, there occurs alteration of different target organs like bone demineralization. Bone demineralization will give rise to osteoporosis, osteomalacia, and excessive calcium released into the blood will give rise to osteitis fibrosa, metastatic calcification, calcium stone formation in different soft tissue organs. There will be excessive serum calcium, excessive serum phosphate. An entire scenario arising due to renal disorder will be termed as renal osteodystrophy. Bony demineralization, osteoporosis, osteomalacia arising out of chronic renal disorder giving rise to compensatory hyperparathyroidism is called renal osteodystrophy. Next is hypoparathyroidism. Hypoparathyroidism can again be of two types. One is true hypoparathyroidism, another is pseudo hypoparathyroidism. In true hypoparathyroidism, there occurs real decrease in the release of PTH hormone from its source. The cause may be of different type, diverse cause may be there. Hypoparathyroidism may be due to ablation of the parathyroid gland. There may be surgical resection during thyroid surgery of the parathyroid glands. So there will be source reduction, actual source reduction of parathyroid hormone. And pseudo hyperparathyroidism is a condition where the parathyroid hormone secretion is not actually reduced, but the problem remains at the level of the receptor. The hormone released normally cannot exert its action at the level of the receptor. Either there may be problem at the second messenger system, or further downwards in the activity of those second messengers exerting its specific action. So there is end organ unresponsiveness or receptor level problem, that is pseudo hypoparathyroidism. Whatever the activity of parathyroid hormone will be grossly reduced, characterized by hypocalcemia, tetany may arise, and due to tetany there may be carpopedal spasm, increased excitability of the neurons, Vostek sign, Trousseau sign, all these will be there. Recombinant parathyroid hormone in subcutaneous route has been tried in the treatment of hypoparathyroidism, but where the problem is at the receptor level, this is also not very promising. But the replenishment of the blood calcium level is one of the mainstay of treatment for the reversal of the symptoms. Now something about parathyroid related protein. Parathyroid related protein is an 140 amino acid containing polypeptide hormone secreted locally, specifically a local hormone. It has got structural homology with PTH and therefore they share the same type of receptor. PTH has got different type of receptors. One of the receptors subtype is shared by PTH-RP. The resemblance is at the amino terminal. The polypeptide chain of PTH and PTH-RP are similar at its amino terminal. PTH-RP is secreted by diverse human tissues like skin keratinocytes, lactating mammary gland, placenta, fetal parathyroid gland, etc. The main function is endochondral bone growth, pubertal growth spurt, breast development, lactation, development of skin, keratinocytes, eruption and enamel formation of the tooth. It prevents the toxic effects of neuronal tissues of brain by excitatory damage of neurotransmitters like glutamate. Persistent excitatory damage of glutamate neurotransmitters are prevented by PTH-RP. And in pathological situation like cancer-induced hypercalcemia has been found to occur due to mediation of PTH-RP. So nothing more about PTH-RP. This much is enough for you. And this is all about today's class. So let me summarize what we learned today. Today we learnt about parathyroid hormone in detail and something about PTH-RP, parathyroid hormone related protein, and we learnt enlistment of different calcitropic hormones also. In parathyroid hormone we learnt its source, that is 4 parathyroid glands, its chemical nature, that is 84 amino acid containing polypeptide chain, its mechanism of action through its cell surface receptor by the mediation of different second messenger system like cyclic AMP, calcium, phospholipase C mechanism. Its physiological roles mainly on 3 target organs: bone, where it leads to osteocytic osteolysis and resorption by osteoclast and thereby increasing blood calcium level by demineralization of the bone; gastrointestinal tract, where it increases absorption of calcium by the action of vitamin D3, which is synthesized in more amount by the action of PTH. And the next target organ is kidney, where it increases reabsorption of calcium from the ascending limb of loop of Henle as well as distal tubule. It reduces reabsorption of phosphate. It increases the activity of 1-alpha hydroxylase enzyme and thereby increased formation of vitamin D3 is ensured. The main regulator of PTH release is fall in plasma ionized calcium level. The maximum secretion of PTH occurs when plasma calcium falls up to 3.5 milligram percent, and up to 5.5 the relation is inversely proportional. Above and below it is almost plateau. So the curve is a sigmoid shaped curve where x-axis represents plasma calcium and y-axis represents PTH release. Other regulators are phosphate ions, which stimulates PTH release, vitamin D3, which inhibits PTH release, and magnesium, which is stimulatory for PTH synthesis. The applied aspect of parathyroid hormone, there may occur hypersecretion leading to hyperparathyroidism, which may be primary and secondary. Secondary hyperparathyroidism, the golden example is renal osteodystrophy. And hypoparathyroidism may be due to true absence or true decrease in the level of parathyroid hormone from the gland, that is true hypoparathyroidism, and there may be problem at the receptor level called pseudo hypoparathyroidism. PTH-RP is a protein secreted in different tissues having structural resemblance with PTH, can share the same type of receptors. It ensures endochondral bone growth, tooth eruption, enamel formation, lactating breast development, and prevents excitatory damage of the neuronal tissues of the brain. This much today about PTH and PTHRP. Please put your queries in the WhatsApp group. I will try to answer all of your questions. Thank you all.